always feel overwhelmed looking at the newspaper. The news in the world is rarely seems good. There's lots of bad news. Syria, for example, there's 11 million refugees. People fled for their lives, leaving their homes, their livelihoods, everything. That's half the country is fled. It'd be like half of Florida just having to leave everything. And they're victims of disease and exploitation, and their futures in great jeopardy. 11 million. And I hear the news that our federal government is proposing research guidelines for science to blend human and animals like mice and rats and create new beings. They call it chimera, and this is not only against federal statute, but it's also grossly unethical. It's very disturbing. And then the elections, you might have heard there are elections this fall. It seems like a race to the bottom. And that, not only is it discouraging the presidential elections, but it sucks the air out of the room for all the other elections, local and state elections, and issues our country should be talking about, things that really matter, but they're not being talked about. So that's disturbing. And then finally, the Tampa Bay Rays have just had a terrible season, and that's a hard one to get over, too. That's a hard one. So there's lots of bad news in the world. But here is good news. Here is good news. This weekend we are talking about our sister diocese in the Dominican Republic, and there's much good news to tell. Several years ago, if you asked a child what do they want to be when they grow up, in the Dominican Republic and our sister diocese, they would have said a driver. A driver would have their own car. They'd go from village to village, giving people rides up and down the bumpy dirt roads, and they would have a little bit of money in their pocket. So that's a good thing to dream about. But today, if you ask a child what they want to be when they grow up, and they'll tell you a doctor, an engineer, a teacher. Because that's what they see. They see doctors and engineers and teachers from Orlando going to help them, medical missions, construction missions, teaching. We built 5 schools for the children there. 5 schools we've built, and top-notch schools. So these kids have a future, and there's more they can do than just be a driver. One of the schools, a middle school, my former parish built, St. Maximilian Colby, and to build a 5-room schoolhouse is very modest, a block schoolhouse, but costs less than the price of a car. $21,000 to give a school for over 100 children. Isn't it amazing? Say yes, Father. I mean, that's just great. I mean, wow, what a difference we made in the lives of those children. What a difference. But the good news is not just the sharing our blessings with the people of the mountains of San Juan de la Maguana, it's also sharing our faith. And we sent priests there and missionaries to share our faith. So that today, the very good news that we hear from this pulpit, they hear. That God is one God, a God of mercy, who sent his only Son to take away the sins of the world. This is the good news we hear, the good news they hear today. Sharing from the altar the body and blood of Christ is the very thing they do today, receiving the body and blood of Christ, sharing in his great offering, and being nourished by the Lord himself. This is good news we share. We share the good news that our God is a God of justice. As we heard, the Lord lifts up the poor. He lifts up the poor. He's a God of justice. This is good news, especially for the poor. So we share our faith as well. Now, some people go to the missions by giving. And after a communion, you'll hear Elaine Fisher speaking about her experience in the missions, and there'll be a second collection. Once a year, we do this collection in support of our sister diocese in the Dominican Republic. But I want to, so that's one way we can support, by giving. But others give to the missions by going themselves. And just a quick question, how many of you all have gone to the sister diocese yourselves? How many have gone on a mission anywhere, into any country? You've gone traveling, you guys have done, and serving others. Okay, I have too. When I was, after college, I wasn't quite ready to go to seminary. I'd been thinking about it for some years, since high school. But after graduating from college, I really had a bad feeling about it. Wasn't ready to do this, go to seminary and study for priesthood. So I thought, well, let's do something different. And so I did a volunteer year. I signed up with an organization called the Jesuit Volunteer Corps, and went to Oregon and spent a year working with the poor and the homeless. Loved it so much, I stayed another year. And through this year, I made great friends, I grew in my faith, really grew up. As our budget was, we learned to live simply so others may simply live, as the saying goes. And the four of us living in one house, the four of us lived on $70 a week for food. And so we shopped a lot at the food bank and learned how to make stuff with powdered milk. We ate a lot of bran muffins, and to this day I still cannot eat a bran muffin. But we learned to live simply, and there are things more important than a lot of money or a lot of nice foods. You can live, you can be fine. But it learned also the poor, that they're just struggling to survive what I had so much. And so it's very humbling to see that just they're just trying to survive and take care, get through the day, and if they have children, make sure their kids are okay that day. That's what they're trying to do, day by day. So it was a humbling year, but also very inspiring, and helped me grow up, to see what was really important in life, and see God's love for me, how much God loves me and all people, and just continually giving me gifts and of His love in different ways. So it made me a more grateful person, and able to then go from there to the seminary and study for priesthood. So it really made a difference in my life. So I'd like to challenge the youth here. You don't have a lot of money to give to the missions in the second collection today, but you do have something else. You have the gift of time. So I challenge you youth, high school and college, to do that. Maybe go on a week mission this summer, or a summer trip, or best of all, go for a year, like I did and so many others have done. After college or somewhere, go for a year serving, the least among us. There's many Catholic organizations out there, and you can find out more. But to go and let the Lord speak to you through that year, and show you what He wants to show you. And so I asked the parents, also I challenge the parents to tell your kids to be missionaries. I know you want them to have a secure future, and you want them to study hard and get a good job. There's a lifetime to do that. But let them make that invitation. Let them know it's okay to be a missionary, to go away for a week, a summer, or for a year, and serve the Lord and serve His people. There's lots of bad news in the world. There's lots to complain about and feel bad about. But here we have good news, and we are able to now bring it to the world desperate for this good news, and even become the good news.